Bitcoin is digital capital. In the years 2020 to 2024, those were the crazy years where a few people would have agreed with me. Most people didn't agree, and even more people didn't even understand what that phrase meant. I think that from 2025 to 2029, these are going to be the years of rapid institutional adoption, acceleration. And if you had to put your finger on one catalyst for it, it's that man right there. The red sweep in November catapulted the entire crypto economy into the mainstream. The headwinds that were blowing in the face of Bitcoin and crypto in general became tailwinds. We had a president that said, never sell your Bitcoin. I'm going to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world. I want us to be the crypto capital of the world. I would say that the world view toward Bitcoin was grudging acceptance before November. I'm going to let, Gary Gensler would have said, I'll let it live. I don't like it. I can't kill it. I acknowledge that it's not a Ponzi. I hate everything else. And after November and after these sweeps, the view became, oh, Bitcoin is a crypto commodity. We like a lot of things going on in the economy. We like 24/7, 365. We like stable coins. We like crypto exchanges. We like money moving at the speed of light. We like self-custody. We like property rights. We like digital. We like global. We like the future. This is the force of progress, right? The entire attitude switched from one of grudging acceptance to one of enthusiastic embrace. We had one cabinet member a year ago that would have acknowledged Bitcoin exists as a thing, and every other cabinet member would have been ignorant, skeptical, or cynical. Now we have 12 cabinet members who are enthusiasts. They like it. The head of the FBI likes it. Think about the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is a Bitcoin fan, or Kelly Loeffler, or Robert F. Kennedy, or the vice president and the president. This is an extraordinary sea change. Maybe I don't know when in the history of the capital markets you went from people not acknowledging the legitimacy of an asset class to the entire cabinet enthusiastically embracing an asset class, right? That's happening, and we're not even 12 months into this. The White House is embracing crypto, and it's embracing Bitcoin, and it's driving positive policy all throughout the government. The ETFs that Wall Street launched, not even 2 years ago, are the most successful ETFs in the history of Wall Street. We've got 1.5 million Bitcoin held on those ETFs. That's exploding. BlackRock's IBIT is just an explosive phenomena. Right now, I think it's like the number 4 ETF. In 4 to 8 years, it could be the number 1 ETF. That's how fast it came out of nowhere. Our company was the first public company to buy Bitcoin in August of 2020. We bought $250 million. People fell off their chair, thought we'd gone insane. That was the most amount of money that had ever been invested in a crypto network in the history of the world. I didn't know that. It just seemed to me like it was a good idea for us, and so we moved. But then it was 2, and then 4, and then 20, and then 40. We had about 60 about a year ago, and we're up to 180 publicly listed companies. So the last 12 months has been explosive. Even the past 6 months has been explosive in terms of public company adoption. This morning, we announced we bought $217 million worth of Bitcoin. I didn't feel like it was a lot. Last week was a 4-day week. It's a 4-day week. But keep in mind that it took us 30 years to buy $250 million in August. And so it gives you a sense of scale and how things are moving. This chart gives you another view of this. What's the significance of this? Okay, well, here's the significance. When your best friend decides they want to buy Bitcoin, they sweep 10% of their cash flows into it. When a private company wants to buy Bitcoin, they sweep half their cash flows into it. When a public company decides to buy Bitcoin, they become a viral super spreader. Metaplanet was a $10 million bankrupt hotel chain in Japan a year ago, and they have found a way to buy $2 billion worth of Bitcoin in like 12 months. They may be the largest hotel company in the world in another 24 to 48 months. They may be the largest company in Japan in 4 to 8 years. What you've got with a public company is public companies aren't limited to, oh, I only spend $100 million a year. I can spend $100 million a month and double it every month, right? Once, it's more like, you know, I start a fire and I throw it into a gasoline warehouse and the thing becomes self-feeding and it just takes off. So every single public company could become a $1 billion, $10 billion, or $100 billion amplifier, right? They're all amplifiers of this movement. And that's the part that is so incredibly powerful. There's probably nothing more powerful than putting a commodity, capitalizing a public company with a commodity and then having it public and then plugging it into the capital markets. Because at that point, the company begins to issue securities, whether they're equity or credit instruments. And that's a rinse and repeat trade, right? How much equity capital can you raise? Well, our company had, we started with a $250 million buy and we raised $47 billion in 5 years. So, you know, what is that? Well, I mean, at this point, we raise more capital in a day than we could have generated in earnings in a year, right? You're accelerating by a factor of 100 or 1,000. Which one of these companies will do that? Well, there's no telling, but the point is they're popping up in the UK, in France, in Sweden, in Brazil, in Japan, in Canada, everywhere. And each one is a different capital market, and each one of these is a super spreader of the Bitcoin virus. There's a Bitcoin 100 now. Companies are racing to get into it. We just crossed 1 million Bitcoin in that group. And that's going to probably accelerate. A lot of the companies on the left side of the screen, you know, 21, Bitcoin Standard Treasury Company, they're Nakamoto, they're all coming out of de-SPACing processes, and they've been in registration and kind of dormant. Once they get through that process, they go active, and at that point, they can start to issue effectively unlimited securities of equity or credit instruments, and they become amplifiers. Now, if it turns out there's 180 companies holding Bitcoin, then you got to imagine all the equity analysts start to have an opinion on Bitcoin. And so this is a roundabout way of getting Bitcoin coverage in the traditional equity capital markets. And every one of these analysts is covering our stock and putting a price target on Bitcoin. They're all above 150,000 for the end of the year. Thomas Lee declared 200,000 for the end of the year this morning. Tech investors, Philippe Lafont has designated Bitcoin like the #3 interesting tech idea in the world. It used to be, before 2020, people thought, well, Bitcoin, it's a crazy crypto speculative asset. And as long as people think of it as a crypto casino speculation, it's never going to get respect to the mainstream. When you start to look at it as digital capital, I took $1 billion block of gold, I dematerialized it, I moved it at the speed of light, I vibrated 1 million times a second, and I distributed it through 1 billion microprocessors. That becomes very interesting to people that made billions of dollars investing in Google and Apple and Amazon and Facebook. And of course, you know, where is all the money in the world? A lot of the money in the world is people that bought the Mag 7 at the right time. So Bitcoin as a technology is much more compelling than Bitcoin as a speculation or even as an ideology. Financial regulators have now embraced it. You know, it wasn't 2-3 years ago that the regulators summarily assassinated Silvergate and Signature Bank. They murdered those two banks, right? There's nothing wrong with those banks other than they were actually too crypto forward and too innovative, and they got shot in the head. That chilled the entire banking establishment, the credit establishment, the insurance establishment. When my company bought Bitcoin, our insurance carriers dropped coverage. I had to provide D&O coverage for my company because we were deemed too risky. It took us, when we had $50 billion of hard collateral, they still thought we were risky. And it took about 5 years before that turned again. So it's pretty important. I can't overstate how important it is that now you have the head of the FDIC, the OCC, Treasury, the Federal Reserve, all articulating pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin guidance. This opens the door for the traditional finance establishment to bank the asset class and to support the asset class. And you can see from the guidance coming out of the SEC, this is a 180-degree switch. You've got the CFTC and the SEC, both pro-innovation, pro-Bitcoin, pro-digital assets. And we've gone from an environment where people were mortified to do anything to an environment where they're enthusiastically charging forward. Bill Pulte directed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to accept Bitcoin or figure out how to accept Bitcoin as collateral for a conforming loan. Okay, this is tremendous, right? If Bitcoin makes its way into the mortgage credit industry, the mortgage industry, then what follows next is it finds its way as good collateral in the consumer banking and the commercial banking industry. And they ask the question, like, what's keeping Bitcoin from flying to 500,000? The answer is there's $2 trillion worth of Bitcoin capital gains, and people with that money can't get a loan for a nickel. Okay, so that entire asset class is unbanked. It's like your employees on a startup made $2 trillion and no one will give them a loan, so they have to sell some of their stock. So what you have is a lot of crypto OGs selling Bitcoin right now because the asset is not really financeable. That's changing, and it'll probably take, I guess, 4 years. Big banks are bureaucratic, risk-averse institutions, and they're large institutions. And look, I don't blame them for being risk-averse. If the regulator literally murdered Silvergate and Signature, I can see why you as the CEO of a bank might be just a little bit conservative about touching that thing, right? The tone at the top was chilling a few years ago. And this administration has gone out of its way to actually reverse the polarity on that.